Big thanks again to Jurgen Klinsmann. That was really good fun yesterday. I'm toiling a bit this morning, I have to confess. Well, it took me 3 attempts to get my T-shirt on. Not this one. I travel here in a different jersey in order to protect these.
Any particular reason it took you 3 attempts?
Well, because I put it on backwards first of all,
okay,
and then I put it on inside out, and then I got irritated with myself and got it right on the 3rd occasion.
Well done.
But I was so annoyed I left home without my mask. So then I had to go back, you see. So it's that feeling of being
old.
A half second behind where you think you are. You know that feeling?
Yeah. But I'm going to be ahead of myself right now, because I'm going to be the first to congratulate Bayern Munich on their 8th Bundesliga title in a row after last night.
Well done.
They're uncatchable. 7 points ahead. 6 games left. Done.
Excellent. The women's season's ended, but there's been no verdict yet on champions. I mention this with a purpose because we're going to get back to it. We now live in a world of equality where women's football is taken as seriously as men's.
A big problem for the Women's League, because Man City top,
which is
1 point ahead of who's below them.
Well done, Andrew. Good homework.
And the game in hand. The team below's got a game in hand.
Yeah,
so there'll be a lot of talking going on.
FA silence over the women's game made a decision to, in the end, cancel seem inevitable. So says this article from Katie Wyatt in the Telegraph today. Ibrahimovic, not such bad news. It isn't a career-ending Achilles. It's a calf injury, apparently. But he picked it up shooting during training, therefore underlining my point that players need to be fit before they go back. Otherwise, all kinds of little niggles and injuries.
So he's the only footballer in the world that's ever had a calf injury shooting in.
No, but initially it was thought it might be Achilles. This is the problem. Unless players go back fit, you're going to find that this is the case.
They're going back fitter
more
now
and more. They're not.
Than they would pre-season. Yes, they are. Trust me. Yes, they are.
This is a story that we've shared with you on beIN Sports when we've been in the company of the former Scotland manager. Manchester United tried to tempt Jack Grealish away from Villa in 2012, so says Alex McLeish.
2012?
It's nice that everybody else is catching up with all these stories that
2012?
Yeah.
8 years ago?
Yeah. When he was a kid.
He must have been a baby, yeah.
He was, but they tried to steal Villa's baby, and McLeish...
Well, they'll probably get him this summer, though. They might get him this summer, but...
Also now, something else that I've been discussing, and I've been berated by my colleague here as being inaccurate on this, but I'm not. It seems bizarre that our government allowed the game to go ahead. This is a Liverpool fan group, Spirit of Shankly, who are demanding answers and an investigation into why their game against Atletico was allowed to go ahead.
I've agreed with you about that.
Because it has now been proven, the science has proven, that both in Liverpool and post-Cheltenham, which was an absolute disgrace that race meeting ever went ahead, COVID-19 cases shot through the roof.
I've not disagreed with that at all.
Thoughts for Glyn Pardo's family?
Yeah.
I remember Glyn.
Me too. Me too.
Died.
He was at a great Man City side, wasn't he?
Very much so. Title winner in '68. Would have been part of their European successors. Shame. We've done Cheltenham, so I can go straight past that. The Premier League wants September start to next season, Andy, which means that we've got to start playing sooner rather than later. Or we're going to miss September 12, 13.
My time scale's been a good one. I've said all along, and I've been consistent with this. Finish this season by July the 31st, or don't finish it at all. Then have your break and come back and start the season in the middle of September.
Which is my preferred choice. Just cancel it, because
we know your
we don't need to go through this painful experience.
We are going through
There are still so many issues that need to be resolved. Back page of the Mail, the police are in the dark. No one's spoken to the police about policing football matches, it seems.
I think things will become much clearer before
Now, this is interesting. Another one that we've been talking about, or rather I have. I'm not sure you've contributed too much on this.
Well, I've listened a lot.
The proposed takeover of Newcastle United would appear now to be on the brink of collapse after the WTO, the World Trade Organization, yesterday ruled that the Saudis are unequivocally behind the piracy of not just our intellectual rights, but the list of the
worldwide.
Absolutely, that I discussed with you the other day. Now, part of the Saudi defence of their bid to take over Newcastle is that, well, no court in the land has ever passed judgment on this. Well, no court. This is just the highest court of them all.
World Trade Organization.
I think this headline here, Mike Crashley, as though it's Ashley's fault. No, it's not.
No, it's not his fault. No,
it's the fault of those trying to take the club over. What else have we got? Fylde's women's team live to fight another day. I again mentioned that with a purpose. Fylde announced 6 weeks ago that their team was folding. Not so. They're going to try and play on next season, which is great. Paul Hayward here in the Telegraph today. The Premier League is going round in circles. It needs to be decisive on a restart, which is again something that we've been saying for a good deal.
Make a decision, someone, please.
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 Okay, so shall we move on and introduce our guest today?
Why not?
Rather convoluted, but I'll get there.
Yes.
Every child's ambition to be a footballer.
Yes.
If you can't, then you would want your son to be a footballer, yes?
Yeah.
Imagine being fortunate enough to have two sons that go on and represent their country at the very highest level, and a daughter who goes on to play international netball.
I would say that's exceptional.
I would say it's unique.
Unique's another
The
good
father of the boys, Neville, we spent time with, obviously it was going to be the case where we met him for the first time in Baden-Baden.
In Germany,
If you remember,
I do. I remember
we had a drink.
Yeah, we had more than a drink. I think we Neville, we had a drink.
One half of the international brothers is with us today, and I would like to finish my introduction by saying part-time red, full-time blue.
Yes.
Morning, guys. All right.
Morning, Phil. And by the way, Phil, I had no idea where he was going with that. He didn't tell me either.
No, I was getting worried at one point. Let me tell you, when Baden-Baden was mentioned.
You remember Baden-Baden?
Yes, yeah, well, I do, because my dad ended up on the front page of the newspaper holding up a World Cup, and my brother went absolutely mad at him because of you two. So,
what's it to do with
that? He had a very, very enjoyable afternoon, and we did in his company.
Yeah,
but
we did.
I do remember the incident when he had the World Cup.
Yes, I know.
And he'd promised Gary that he'd keep a low profile.
Yeah. The problem is that he had a good afternoon with you and then went out at night.
Well, he did.
Well.
That was guilty as charged, Philip. Guilty as charged.
How did the phone call go down when it was received, Phil? Gary, I think I might be in a bit of trouble.
Yeah, it didn't go down well. Let me tell you. I had to be the peacemaker in between them for a little wee while. Well, we blame you two anyway.
Yeah, by the way, everybody else does, Phil. You might as well.
Yeah.
Let's get serious. Why has no one talked about women's football and, well, I mean, now over, Phil, so we've got a decision. But we don't live in a world of equality, in truth, do we? Because it's almost slipped under the radar.
It has really. I mean, I'd say that for the whole of the lockdown period, that the news and the focus has totally been on the Premier League, and you could even say that even League 1 and 2 have been, brushed to one side. But the women's Super League, I've been in a lot of talks, obviously working at the FA, of the goings on and what we were going to do, and ultimately it got cancelled yesterday, the season. But I think the momentum that we've built up over the last 2 years, I think my biggest concern is that we need to keep that momentum, and to do that, we will need the support of the big clubs, the Premier League, the big organisations to keep backing women's football. Because at the moment, obviously, nobody spoke about women's football for the last 60 days. And I think it was disappointing the league got cancelled, but I do think it was the right decision for women's football.
Phil, do you worry that post-COVID-19, when clubs are maybe trying to tug the purse strings a little bit and save money on certain things, that the teams that are affiliated to clubs might get lost? Do you fear that, or are you sound that the clubs will look after the women's league?
Well, I think I'm pretty sure that the likes of Man United, Arsenal, Chelsea, Man City will look after their women's team. I think there's a massive commitment there. It's teams like Bristol City, Birmingham, who are in the WSL, Brighton even, when they're looking at their budgets for the year, and obviously the biggest income's on the men's side. I just hope, and Reading and Birmingham have both furloughed their women's teams and staff at this moment in time. I hope that we don't lose them, because ultimately there's only 12 teams in the senior division. And we need to keep teams like Birmingham, Bristol City, Reading. We need to keep them in, because they're really good teams who've been there from the start.
It's worth pointing out for our international viewers, we're taking a little bit for granted here, Phil, your role with England. But for those who don't know, Phil is currently the England women's national team manager. And this may seem a strange subject for Andy and I to be discussing for some, but the truth of the matter is, Andy and I were watching women's football when Stanley Matthews' wife played.
A long time.
And the game was not as good then as it is now. It's come on leaps and bounds, Phil, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think if you saw the spectacle in the summer, I think what people saw in the summer, they saw women's football in a whole new light. Physically better, technically better, tactically better. The goals, the goalkeeping was incredible. I think if you rewind probably 10, 15 years ago, there was probably not a lot of those qualities that people saw. But I think the advance of the infrastructure, the foundations. I think in the summer you saw a lot of converts to watching women's football that were actually blown away with the quality. And I think that's my fear now going into the next probably 2 or 3 years, is that we need to keep that quality, keep the investment, because without the investment, the players won't be able to get the platform to do what they've done for the last 2 years.
And has that, the Great World Cup and the way that the women's game has advanced over the last, particularly I think, Phil, over the last maybe 4 or 5 years, more than any time in its history.
Yeah.
Right? Now, has that reflected in the Women's Super League? Have we seen a rise in attendances in that league? Has that been positive?
We've seen a massive rise in attendances. I think playing the odd game at the stadiums and at the stadiums of the teams has helped, even though they've had to reduce the prices. But we've seen massive attendance rises. I think, look, on the face of it, women's football looks like it's in a really good place. There's still an unbelievable amount of work to do. There's still a massive gulf in facilities, in equipment, in staffing in the women's team, particularly when you get to the middle to bottom half of the table. So there's still a long way to go. And I think it's still important that conversations, opportunities, and people going out there and sticking the neck on the line and saying they still want better. And I think that's always been the case with women's football, that maybe people haven't been brave enough to go out there and fight. But actually, at the moment, there's a great platform for us.
Well, you have, and you've helped to put it properly on the map. So
Absolutely.
Why have you decided to quit?
Well, the plan was always to do the 3 years. I had a World Cup, I had Olympics, which was this summer now, and then there was the Euros in England next summer. That was my 3-year stint at international football. I think international football for sort of like a 40 to 41 2-year-old can get quite frustrating. So I thought, get some managerial experience, unbelievable in terms of going to major tournaments, and then cut my teeth sort of like in day-to-day running with the energy that I have got. And with the coronavirus, it means that there was obviously no Olympic Games, no Euros, which meant that ultimately I had to make the decision early, because at this moment in time we'd be preparing for an Olympics. So my plan was always just to go for the 3 years and then get into day-to-day running of a club job, which would be what I wanted to do. And it's been brilliant. I've loved every minute of it, but ultimately you don't get to see the players, you don't get to impact them every single day, which is now what I feel I need to do.
Well, let's talk a little bit about you. I will address you by your full name in just a moment. I'll give you mine first of all.
Do you know his full name?
I know his full name.
Wow.
My full name is Disgraced or Hairy.
Yes, I would concur with that.
I see both those words that preference my name an awful lot of the time.
I'm just disgraced, I think.
Yes, but neither of which is true, as it happens. And Phil's full name is Gary's brother Phil. What is it like being Gary's brother Phil?
Well, to be honest with you, I mean, there's worse places to be fair. I mean we are.
You could be Keezy's brother.
Yeah, it could be Disgraced.
Or Disgraced and Hairy.
Disgraced and Hairy. I mean, we are literally best friends. We speak 2-3 times a day, so it's never been sort of like a problem, It's obviously he's had a great career. He's doing fantastic on television, and we actually don't get involved in any of that really. So it's not really an issue.
What about this story that I read recently that when you took Everton back and lined up in the tunnel? He blanked you, whereas 1 or 2 others didn't. It's not quite as brutal as that, is it? What's the backstory?
No, I mean, it's typical Gary. I mean, if you looked at it, he did it to me, he did it to Schmeichel when we went back to City. When he's in that tunnel, and I remember, I think Andy, was you commentating on the game? I think Andy at the time maybe, and
probably
and literally came down the tunnel and Scholesy, Giggsy, Rio, they're all saying hello, and then you get to the bottom and the person that you live together for half your life, your brother, he just totally blanked you. I mean, I knew he was going to do it. I knew he was going to do it. It's part of the. It was what he did to most. It's what he did to most people, really. Do you know what I mean? Outside of his circle, Do you know what I mean? He probably ignored a lot of people, but I mean, I've got to say at the time it was quite funny.
In a way, Phil, there was obviously sibling rivalry, although I'm sure you both wanted each other to succeed. Did sibling rivalry help you both, do you think, as you were growing as footballers?
Yeah, I think it did. It spurred us on. I mean, when I was 15, I wanted to be a cricketer. I was playing cricket for Lancashire, and then Gary used to come home from training every single day saying, "Oh, I trained today. I cleaned Brian Robson's boots," or Mark Hughes said hello to me, and it was almost his influence that guided me to play football. And then when he was in the youth team, together, was in the same position. So unconsciously, our rivalry, our competition between us spurred us on. And every time he did something, I wanted to do it better. Every time I did something, he was always challenged. So inadvertently, that spurred us on to keep challenging and keep bettering ourselves.
Yeah, inadvertently we're talking about him, and I don't want to. He said his coaching career is over. Doesn't want to go back. Yeah. What about yours?
Yeah. Well, mine's just beginning. I spent a year at Old Trafford with David Moyes, and that was a brilliant experience. I then went to Spain and had a year in Spain, which was probably even a better experience in terms of a life experience. And then I've loved the job as manager. What I would say is the next job I take, I do want to be a manager. I think I've been an assistant, and I think I want to be in control of everything that I want to do. I want to be the person that makes decisions. And I want day to day. And when people ask me what I want to do next, I'm literally open-minded. We were talking before the show about living in Rosendale. I was a lad that lived in Bury all my life, and then all of a sudden went to Spain, learned a new language. And now the world is a different place when you can speak two different languages. So I'm open to any kind of sort of like opportunity. And people say, "Oh, you want to be in the Premier League?" Yes, you want to be in the Premier League, but the world is a fabulous place now where football is brilliant all over the world.
Agreed.
People say that you learned from the coaches you worked under, Phil, and you worked under one of the best, if not the best.
Yeah,
I would have to concede.
Moisey.
Moisey's up there. Moisey's up there. Sven's up there.
Sven,
Moisey and Sven are up there.
We're making ourselves laugh if nobody else.
How much of Sir Alex Ferguson would be in Phil Neville as a coach?
Do you know what? It's when I got the job as manager of the women's team, and you get put into certain situations where you are tested by your players, you're tested by staff, and subconsciously you always think about incidents that happened in your career that Sir Alex was, and the biggest one was naming the team, how you leave the players out, and for the girls. The team announcement is the biggest thing. There's 22 players, 11 want to play, and the emotion of the other 11 players that don't play hits the girls really hard. So I learned a massive amount of the skill of telling players, not that they're playing. Actually, the biggest skill is telling those that are not playing and why they're not playing. And the biggest thing he always used to say to us, he used to tell us the truth, whether it was good or bad. He used to tell us why we weren't playing every single game. And that's what I took into management. And it took the girls by surprise when I was calling the girls into my office to tell them why they weren't playing, what's the reasons, what they need to do. And I think it gains you a lot of respect when you are so honest. And sometimes that can be quite brutal at times. But ultimately, in the long run, I think they have more respect for you. And Sir Alex was the absolute best at that.
Somebody's going to jump on us, Phil. You keep referring to the girls. Can we just straighten that up? When you first met your team, what did they say to you? How the manner in which you should address them?
Well, it was funny really, because when I got the job, there was obviously a lot of criticism at the time that I hadn't got much experience and the terminology and language that you use, and now I'm 2 years into the job. I'm in a totally different place in terms of I'm much more relaxed. At the first probably 3 or 4 months, it was a situation that I wasn't enjoying about the language that you could use in terms of the terminologies. And I went to a game, and the Arsenal manager invited me into his office before the game. And as I was walking down the tunnel, I'd been told I wasn't allowed to use the term girls. And as I was walking down the tunnel, I was stood in the tunnel with him, and all I could hear was the girls saying, "Come on, girls, play well today, girls. Let's get stuck in, girls." And I'm like, and then obviously I sat down with my team, with my players, and we had a really frank and honest conversation. I said, "Look, you need to help me here in terms of language," and they just said, "Be yourself. You know, and that's what I was, and I'm miles more relaxed now because of the way that they've treated me, and in terms of sort of like the things that you can and can't do.
It seems to me it's one of those occasions, Phil, where people on the outside are far more worried than actually the people on the inside.
Yeah. Oh, and I would add also, sorry, Phil, I would add also tend to know more than the people on the inside.
Yeah.
I think that the thing that I've absolutely loved in the job is the players. The players have been fantastic in terms of they watch more football than probably you guys. They watch Champions League, they watch every type of football out there. They know so much about every single player, all the tactics, the terminologies, and their honesty. The difference between the men's and the women's game is that the women's game hasn't been affected by the glitz, the glamour, the money, the egos, the big, you know, so it hasn't been affected. So you get a real purity and an honesty about it where you can actually be yourself. There's no showboating, and that's what I've loved about it. And the girls have been absolutely fantastic. They've helped me so much in terms of sort of like opening up my mind to the obstacles that they've had, Richard and Andy. They've had so many obstacles thrown in their way throughout their careers that we've probably been ignorant to that over the years.
Yes, I think that's fair. But so if your career continues to take you down the line into management, have you felt a shift in recent weeks, months towards the British coach again, away from the inevitable obvious appointment of a foreign coach when jobs become available?
I hope so. I really hope so. And I know that you have Big Sam and the gaffer David Moyes on your show, and they were pioneers for English and British coaches in an era where it became fashionable to go to the foreign coach. But I think what I really love at this moment in time, and I really want them to succeed, is Frank at Chelsea, Scott Parker at Fulham, Stevie G up at Rangers, even Ryan with Wales, myself. We need all these young coaches to succeed, and then when you see Frank and Stevie doing well at the biggest and best clubs in England and Scotland, it will give hope and confidence for owners, because they're all foreign owners. They're all foreign owners who look worldwide for coaches. That actually we've got some unbelievably fantastic coaches on our shores, and they need to be given opportunities, and they need to be given chances, and they need to be backed. You look back at sort of like David Moyes at Manchester United, he wasn't backed as much as probably what he should have been, and that was probably because he was probably an English coach and wasn't foreign.
I think what we need more than anything, Phil, are people like yourself who have come out of the Premier League era. Yeah, I think a lot of these foreign coaches want a big name. They want a name. The foreign names always sound better. But if you've got somebody like yourself who's played for England numerous occasions, Stevie G, you mentioned it, Frank Lampard, John Terry at Villa, JT's another one. The more that you guys, high-profile players, come out of the game and say, I'm going to stay in it as a coach, I think that's going to be best for British and Irish coaches than anything.
Yeah, I think it's twofold, really. I've got to say, I think we've got to put the work in. I don't think your great career guarantees you a great managerial career. So I think you've got to put the work in. I think going on to the television all the time, being a pundit, is probably not doing us any favours in a way, in terms of sort of like, if you have a job, stay in a job, get sacked from a job, which we will all do, you've got to then go out and get another job. And then you've got to go out and get another job and get your hands dirty again. And you've got to sort of like go through that process, because ultimately that's what the foreign coaches do. They're obsessed with football. Yeah. And that's what I think this new breed coming in, Frank, Stevie G, Scotty Parker, JT, we've got to stay in coaching and not take sort of like the easy route of going onto the sofa and start talking about football. We've got to stay in and almost suffer, because it's really hard being a coach and a manager. You've got to suffer. You've got to, I got sacked after 10 months at Manchester United, the club of my dreams. It hurt me more than any other things hurt me in football. But ultimately, you've got to get back on the bike again. And that's what I think the foreign managers do better than us at this moment in time.
Phil, thank you for your time. It's been both enlightening and thoroughly enjoyable, I have to say.
Yes.
Thank you.
Really, really
Thank you.
good fun.
Top class.
When everything settles,
Good
I say to everybody that's joined us, please come and see us again. We'd like to spend more time in your company.
Yeah, let the weather
I'm
cool
busy.
a bit.
I'm busy. Sorry, I'm busy. I'm coaching now. You know.
Yeah.
Who knew? Phil's got a sense of humour.
By the way, he'll have quit by the time the Euro starts next year. He can come and join us then.
Yeah, the Euros from Qatar.
Phil, it's been great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Phil.
Appreciate your time.
Top man.
Phil Neville. Sensational. Thoroughly enjoyed that. Just one other thing before we go. We're becoming popular in a in a way that I didn't think ever we could, Andy. But we're getting requests
steady
from
on. I've been
all
quite
over the
popular
world.
through my life, I have you know.
We're getting requests from all over the world for a mention now. I've got to mention. I've got to get this right as well. It's a Welsh side by the name of Crumich, I think. Crumich.
You should have asked Tidy for that first.
I did, and I've forgotten what he said to me. But this is a team that have just been promoted out of League Two in Wales into what they call in Wales as the Cost Cutter League. Which is
I think I've heard of that.
Yeah.
Yes.
The top league. They've gone up as runners-up in their league, but one of their greatest supporters is also a huge supporter of ours. Keys and Gray loves it, watches whenever he can. He's here in Qatar, lives on the Pearl, and just said, "Could you mention my team? Because nobody probably ever will." And seeing as we've been talking about things today that most don't.
And they got promotion this year.
They got promoted this year.
All I'd like to say, boys, is take a bow, lads. Take a bow.
Can't follow that. We'll see you tomorrow.